Hello everyone, welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet that's going to be spending their weekend at a definitely not haunted hotel. I'm Will, and joining me as always, Moozamil.
It's me, Luigi.
Ills.
Werewolf bar mitzvah, spooky, scary.
And Saf.
It's me, Luigi.
Oh boy, you're deeply unsettling.
Does Luigi speak? Have we established that Luigi can speak?
He makes noises?
What kind of noises?
It's like imagine you're waterboarding Luigi, and like that's the sounds he makes.
Wow.
So does Charles Martinet voice Luigi then? I guess he must.
Yeah.
Yeah. He drugs himself every
And
recording.
imagine what he goes through for that.
The legacy goes to give us a realistic...
You went very method.
He's a true artist.
Yeah. So, besides, of course, Charles Martinet and his self-inflicted torture, how's all your weeks?
Pretty good. I mean, I was playing Luigi's Mansion. If you can
Really? That's the thing we were referencing this whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I leave my answer up to Brandon. Oh wait, he's not fucking here.
Yeah.
I know. He abandoned
died.
us. Can you believe that?
Yeah, what a
He was turned into a painting
Yeah.
by the King Boo.
Maybe we'll save him one day.
Oh, shit. We gotta save him. Yeah, we can just
Or
leave
probably
him.
not, yeah.
Nah, too much work.
Yeah, you're on your own, buddy.
So, guys, instead of saving Brandon, why don't we talk about some video game-related news?
I love video game related news.
That's what I live for.
Oh. Well, I know one thing that Ills feels passionate for every day of his life,
Oh,
and that is
fuck.
sales discussion.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh boy.
I thought you were gonna say Pokemon.
That too. Sadly, Pokemon is leaking, but we're not going to cover that. Come on. But instead, we, of course, always have to have those quarterly reports from Nintendo, right? They come out there, they let you know what flopped, what didn't. They don't actually tell you what flopped. Why would they just say that to their investors? But we got a couple pieces of information that are basically sort of just follow-ups to things we already said. You might recall, for example, that we said that Link's Awakening had a very good opening, right? We can now say how good it was, which is in 10 days, Link's Awakening sold over 3 million copies, which is, in fact, I think it's 3.13, right? Is that the exact number?
Sounds
Roosevelt?
right.
Sounds about right. Which is wild. In 3 days, already passed the original Link's Awakening.
Fantastic.
Already passed Majora's Mask 3D. It's going to pass A Link Between Worlds by the end of the year, right? Just
Well deserved.
it's wild. Yeah. And we've said all the other things. We've said a lot of this stuff before, but I think it's so interesting. It was the thing to knock 1-2 Switch off the top 10 best-selling Switch titles.
Good
What a
God.
victory.
Thank God.
It had a good. To be fair, it had a good run. 2.5 years in the top 10.
We should have never been there.
Link's
Disappointed it lasted that long.
It's a huge success. I'm very interested to see its legs, right? Its continued sales performance, because we've seen with Breath of the Wild, that game just continues to sell a quarter over quarter over quarter. It's just like it's such a consistent selling game, and clearly Breath of the Wild has raised the profile of the Zelda brand, right? We've talked about this before, but just the Zelda franchise as a whole is in the best place it's ever been, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious to see. I mean, it already resulted in Link's Awakening just having a monstrous opening. I'm curious to see its performance throughout the holidays and even beyond that, right? Like, I mean, because now Zelda is no longer a game that just sells all its copies on day one, right? Like, I'm curious if we see performance similar to Breath of the Wild in that regard. Not to the extent, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I could see Link's Awakening being this game that people continue to buy when they buy their Switch, like,
I mean, I think so.
For years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. It seems to me to be like an evergreen title. I mean, I don't see why anyone would stop being appealed. It wouldn't stop appealing to anybody because it's just so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Because I think oftentimes, generally the way that sales work, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the more hardcore a franchise skews, the more front-loaded it tends to be, right? Because it's the people that are hyper engaged that are picking it up as soon as they possibly can, right?
I mean, like your average JRPG, which is, I'd say, one of the more hardcore genres in general, right? Sells like 80% of its lifetime sales in the first week, So it's like, so yeah, hardcore games tend to do more up front. But like you said, I mean, Zelda, and the Switch as a whole, right? Games on Switch just have this effect where they're just Nintendo's games just are evergreen, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that means that Zelda's hitting a wider audience, which is cool. I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff about, Fire Emblem, worth shouting out. Fire Emblem Three Houses, right? It's already past Awakening. It will pass Fates, all versions combined, by the end of the year.
Good.
Yeah.
This is the best Fire Emblem ever.
And now the sales are showing it. Yeah, I mean, it is crazy though. Just to step back for a second, the fact that Awakening was the breakout hit for this franchise, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like this is, and then to outsell the entirety of Awakening in the very first quarter that it released, that is a big deal. That is crazy.
That's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
And we've seen from Fire Emblem both Fates and Awakening that those are games that those were also evergreen on 3DS, right? And so I expect that to continue here. But man, Three Houses, it's good for them. Like that's crazy,
Hell yeah.
Would you associate it with the fact that the Switch has already sold quite a significant amount of units compared to 3DS back in the day when it was just still not hitting those numbers? That could have
a little bit. We've seen that Switch software sales are just at a rate that we've never seen on Nintendo system before.
Yeah.
Right? This is unprecedented for all of these franchises, right?
Yeah.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is outpacing Mario Kart Wii for fuck's sake. This is
Smash is now the top-selling Smash game.
Smash Ultimate, has outsold both Wii U and 3DS combined.
Yeah.
Right?
Fucking eat it.
This is just a trend on Switch, but but I think it also speaks to the quality of the games they're putting out on Switch, right? I don't think I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Mhm.
It's yes, they are successful because the Switch is such a great platform and it clearly incentivizes people to buy more and more. But also, they're putting out some of the best games they ever have.
Yeah.
These are some of the best entries in these franchises that we've ever seen. I can definitively say Smash Ultimate's the best Smash Brothers, right? I feel
True.
pretty good saying Fire Emblem's the best Fire Emblem, and it's just this is, and I could go on and on, of course, but it's a testament to just where Nintendo's at right now, I think.
Yeah.
Both as a hardware manufacturer, but also just as a software publisher. They're just killing it.
Yeah. And speaking of, worth saying both the hardware and the software numbers, we're at 41.67 million Switches out there in the wild right now, and we're at 246 million units of software sold, which is a lot.
By George, I think they got a hit.
They might have a hit. But I want to turn this a little bit because they always have the Q&A portion, and one of the big questions walking into this was that they launched a new revision of the Switch this quarter, right? Switch Lite. And it did well, right? 1.95 million units in the first 10 days that it was on the market, right?
Nice.
But it's interesting, we mentioned before already, it's not interfering with regular Switch sales. It's not eating into that market, it's adding on to it. But they said that the thing that's interesting is that so far, most Switch Lites have been sold to people that already own a Switch.
I knew it.
I
knew it was part of the master race.
And that's interesting because that sort of tells you, right? This is the people that would buy a revision day one tend to be the more hardcore, right? Like we mentioned with the games earlier. And so, they're saying looking at Pokemon, that's the thing they're going to look out for with Switch Lite. And part of it is with Switch Lite in the market, they want to start bringing more of the 3DS's titles to Switch, right? And we're seeing that with things. Brain Age is a DS type of game, but that's coming in December, right? And I think that sort of, a big 3DS game, for example, is like Tomodachi Life, right? Those games that aren't the most hardest at hardcore, but they quietly, Tomodachi Life is the 10th best-selling 3DS game.
Yeah.
Style Savvy, every time it comes out, sells 2 million units.
They fill out the ranks. They're good.
Yeah.
They're good games to have,
Yeah,
Mhm.
They have a great place in the library, right? And I'm glad that Switch. I figured they would come eventually, right? And we already started seeing this trend for their bigger franchises like Animal Crossing, Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Luigi's Mansion, right? But it'll be nice to have that Tomodachi Life. It'll be nice to have that that Style Savvy. Bring those franchises on board. Hell, bring Nintendogs back. Why not, right?
It's time. Paris Hilton asked for it on Twitter. We gotta answer.
Yeah.
Where are the Nintendo dogs?
I'm totally.
Where's my Nintendo cats? What the fuck?
Nintendogs Plus
They were in
cats.
the 3DS one.
Okay.
It is true.
Cats
I'll forgive
were there.
them this time.
Yeah, Miyamoto even said, he's like, that's when he gave that wonderful quote: "Cats are like girls. I forget what exactly.
They don't like me or something, right? I forget what it was.
It was like,
Damn.
I approached them, and they're very. It was like.
It was keeping it real with Shigeru Miyamoto. But yeah,
Shigeru
so that's
Miyamoto
sort of
after dark, apparently.
it's true. We do, and we have one other little thing from the investors report before we move on. They announced Mario Kart Tour. We mentioned before has the $5 a month subscription service. Also does not have multiplayer right now. They're going to be launching a private beta for it if you are a subscriber in December, which is, I mean,
Not good. I don't
Not
like this
great.
game at all. I wish it didn't exist. And yeah, I'm sad even talking
I don't
about
have
it.
as strong feelings as Ills does, clearly. I think it's
About
fine,
anything.
whatever. I mean, it's cool that it's getting multiplayer, I guess, right? Real multiplayer, because
Mhm.
that is the bread and butter of Mario Kart.
yeah.
Right? I think it's fine that a beta is exclusive to people who are paying for the gold pass. I think that whatever, it's a beta.
Here's hoping that when it becomes the main thing.
It
it's
is
not gonna be
almost
that,
certainly
right?
going to be a feature they roll out to everyone. I would put money on that. Like that. Come on. Like,
But also, I think it's so weird because they delayed this game several times, right?
a long time.
And it's interesting that like this multiplayer aspect, like mobile markets, I'm not a master of following them, right? But I think it is interesting to sort of have a 6-month roadmap for a game, right? Because I feel like very much once you are off those play charts, you're sort of dead in the water, right? That's a lot where a lot of the momentum comes from, seemingly. And so I think it's interesting to sort of add this in as it is, right? Because I think a lot of people, obviously, it's Mario Kart, sort of expected it at launch, and I'm interested to see if having that gap between release to it actually being in the game hurts the game long term, right?
I don't think it will. Honestly, I don't know. I am curious about the multiplayer though, because there is a bit of a pay to win aspect in Mario Kart Tour. Because you
get the multipliers.
Certain characters get to hold more items depending on the track that you're on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder how that, which I thought was fine for a single player game, it was whatever. But like, multiplayer, it'll be interesting to see. I wonder if they balance that out a little bit more, or they don't. Maybe they go in the opposite direction. Maybe they make it.
That seems very fucky.
Maybe they increase the wealth gap, right? We'll see.
Oh god,
That seems
I wish this game
incredible.
didn't exist, man.
Yeah.
Jesus. Like, didn't we talk about this like earlier? And like the pricing scheme just felt very predatory.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like. Honestly, like,
It is I would say it's the most aggressive of Nintendo's mobile releases so far,
for sure,
right?
For sure it is. And it's funny because it's it is matched with Nintendo's biggest IP, right? And so it's curious to see how these two things will blend together.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting. They didn't announce. This is one of the only times, because normally mobile games get announced at these quarterly reports, right? The investors love hearing about mobile.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first times that there's nothing on the docket for mobile, and they didn't announce anything for the docket, right? So there's no upcoming games besides
there's
Mario
always
Kart
been-
getting the update.
Maybe that's because they want to have a shorter time frame between release and reveal, right? Like
Sure.
Dr. Mario World came out like 2 months after it was announced, I think, or something like that.
Mhm.
Versus, Mario Kart Tour, obviously we talked about how many goddamn delays it had.
Yeah.
Even Animal Crossing Pocket Camp took longer than expected.
Mhm.
When they first announced their mobile initiative, they're like, we're going to have 5 games out within the first fiscal year. And then 2 fiscal years later, they released 2 games. So like, it's been a slow roll with mobile. And I think they have, it was like 6 months ago in one of these investor meetings. They kind of signaled to investors, they're like, hey, like our goal is to focus now on 1 or 2 mobile games in a fiscal year, right? And we really want to, because these are service games, launching it, putting it out the door, that's the work is not done, like you have to, you're gonna have to keep advertising Mario Kart Tour. You're gonna have to keep adding content to Tour. You're gonna have to, like the amount of spending on their mobile research and development is gonna go up just for Mario Kart Tour alone. Like that's gonna just ramp up even more. especially as we get features like multiplayer. I can't imagine that's cheap to run that, right? Like, So it's like, I mean, I assume that's why they didn't announce any new mobile games yet, because like the focus is on, hey, we got to make sure Mario Kart Tour is a big deal. Because honestly, if Mario Kart Tour flops, what is going to be successful Nintendo mobile wise? Like, I mean,
Fire Emblem Heroes, got it, one and done.
Sure.
Invest in anime.
But even like that, it's such a small drop in the bucket compared to what Nintendo is earning overall right now. I mean, and that's partially because Switch is just so successful, right? I mean, but like Nintendo had one of its best years ever, so is having one of its best years ever so far, and Switch accounts for 93% of that revenue.
Damn, it feels real good to be back on top, man. Those Wii U years were real hard. We were like fighting for scraps. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Amiibo, it was the good story for 2.5 years. It's like, hey man, everything's bad, but Amiibo are doing great.
I remember all those gifs of fucking Iwata coming out of the coffin to like surprise people. Oh man, fucking hilarious.
This will be the thing to save the Wii U.
After,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Difference in tone. He was alive back then. Sorry.
Yeah, but
No
I do think it's worth noting because Nintendo long term, what they want, right, is they want 3 big pillars, right? Your dedicated video game business. So no longer are they going to do multiple systems at once, right? That is just a thing of the past, and that's pretty clear by now, right? Like, sure, we'll get Switch Lite and other editions of family, but it's like one pillar.
There'll be one family of consoles.
One family of consoles. That's one pillar, right? Another pillar is mobile, and the third pillar is IP licensing, so theme parks, movies, entertainment, character merch, stuff like that, right?
What about the fourth pillar?
Well, no.
The quality of life.
Quality of life.
That's true.
It's Ring Fit Adventure, goddammit.
When Ring Fit felt my pulse, I was like, the vitality sensor lives, baby.
Exactly.
You thought it was gone.
Yeah. No, but what was the thing? But like, they clearly want each of these things to stand on their own, right? In addition to being synergistic with each other, right? But right now, mobile's not doing that. Like, mobile is such a drop in the bucket for them. And like, Mario Kart Tour, I think, is kind of going to be the testing ground of can mobile sustain itself as its own pillar for Nintendo, or is it just going to forever be this supplementary thing? I don't know.
It's going to be sad if Mario Kart Tour wins. It's one of those things that's like, it's got kind of really bad practices, so you kind of don't want it to be a success. But
see, and this is the difference between you and I, right? Like, I am more willing to put on my investor hat. And
dirty capitalist.
Moral and ethics be damned.
Get the fucking pitchforks.
Yeah. Moral and ethics be damned. I just want to see the numbers go up.
Jesus
right?
Christ. We're gonna talk about this in politics chat, bitch.
Okay,
but yeah, so
for that, but
that is sort of, I mean, that's what these conversations are. They are them talking to the investors.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no dumb questions. I always love the dumb investor questions.
We might get the translation next week and see, actually there was something really stupid.
Because sometimes they're like, I got a holiday care package last year and I thought it was lacking. Could you include more soap in the gift pack boxes? And you're like, thank you for that.
That's vital. I need to know.
That's true. Can my kids get a ticket to see Detective Pikachu? But until then, we'll find out then. Maybe that'll be the main news story next week. It won't be. But obviously, Nintendo was talking to their investors. Company of the people, Blizzard, was speaking directly to their fans this week at BlizzCon.
Oh
yeah. That is a sentence that ages like milk.
Revolution.
But let's talk about it.
Oh, dear.
So I thought, do we want to mention the China stuff, right? Blizzard, of course, made it easy because they wanted to talk about the China stuff at the very opening of the presentation. They had the president of Blizzard, whose name I forget. He has very long silver hair.
Yeah,
he looks like The Witcher.
I was gonna say that.
But he came out and apologized. I would say, a fairly toothless apology, right? Sort of was like, we're sorry, we weren't the people we want to be better, but then like there was no like, and Blitzchung is unbanned, or like,
Yeah.
and
It was
going forward.
definitely vague on specifics.
Yeah.
You know, they made sure not to utter the words China, Hong Kong, even Blitzchung. At least mention Blitzchung, right? But whatever. And then, you know, and also it didn't really go into details on how, you know, how they're going to improve anything. It was just simply, we're sorry.
We're gonna do better. Actions
Yeah,
speak louder
yeah.
than words, and then hear a bunch of words.
Yeah. You know.
Which, I mean, part of that is just, I think that there was maybe some slight concerns, especially after last year's Blizzard sort of, you know, BlizzCon went poorly with Diablo Immortal. We want to address it at the start, right?
Yeah, just go ahead and start like, hey, we fucked up, you know. Well,
And they
to an extent, fine. I wish they went further though. I just gonna put that out there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, an apology is all well and good, and I'm glad they did it, but you know, do something real.
Yeah, at this stage, yeah.
And there was but it's funny because everyone said, oh, they did this because of that controversy, or they announced a bunch of games. I would say it's because last year's BlizzCon, like you mentioned, right? But they did, they let off. It was a very funny transition. It was just like, it was him saying, I'm sorry, keep an eye on us as we go forward, we're gonna do the right thing, and then immediately into a 9-minute cinematic for Diablo 4. Just no transition. Hard cut.
Because that's exactly what they want the public conversation to go. Hard cut into Diablo 4, you know? Just...
Yes. And that is what we got. There was a sort of a 9-minute trailer. It was there was some gore to it. If you're sensitive to like
it was
blood
kind of
vessels.
gross. I was not happy.
But that was sort of their main thing for Diablo 4 in an interesting way. After that, they did have gameplay, right? They showed off a couple of new classes. Classes. The one that stuck out to me was the Druid.
Yeah,
you get turned
definitely.
like a big bear boy, and that was cool.
Yeah.
But they sort of addressed that. Diablo 3, when it came out, had a lot of people who were longtime fans sort of say, this looks like WoW has inspired this new art style too much, right? Everything's too cartoony for this series that I like. And so sort of this was them coming out there and saying, no, we're making it grimdark again. Don't you worry, right? We took the colors and we sucked them out.
Well, that's
but
good, but I mean, I feel like my problems with Diablo 3 weren't that.
Sure.
It was just like at launch, it just wasn't a very fun game.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell, like, from this initial reveal if, like, you know, what the state of the game is going to be like when it comes out, right? Because I think the problems with Diablo 3 were not apparent until it launched, right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, that'll, you know, no matter what they show, it's kind of like, I mean, that'll always be like, you know, just gotta wait and see on that, right?
I mean, I think what they showed looked good.
But the tone and everything,
yeah.
like, it's striking like what people want, right? You know, I did find it interesting that they announced it for PS4 and Xbox One, even though it is very far off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's worth mentioning context to this really fast. Sorry to interrupt you, Moosemil, but we mentioned last year, Jason Schreier said that Diablo 4 was getting rebooted, basically, right? That's why it wasn't at BlizzCon last year, right?
Yeah.
And like a hard reboot, too. So this game is essentially a year into development. It's not very far. And I think the exact verbiage they used was, we're not saying it's coming soon, it's not even Blizzard soon, right? Which is sort of referencing how whenever they have releases, they tend to take a long time from announcement to release. They were saying, this is going to be even longer than that, right? Which I think is...
Do they operate in Muzzy minutes?
They may.
But they're being upfront about it this time, right? Like, hey, it's gonna come out. So which is why I found it fascinating that there was that, hey, PS4, Xbox One, right? But you know, I mean, that either those versions just don't come out, we just get them for next gen, or maybe cross gen goes that long. Who knows, right?
Yeah. Very possible.
Yeah, I mean they're clearly targeting PS4 and Xbox One though, like from just like the way it looks, right? Though, right? Like it looks like a PS4 game. You know, like what the footage I saw did not look like, oh, this is a next gen game.
Right.
Yeah.
It looked
Well,
good,
I'm
but
sure-
it wasn't like shocking.
It looked good, yeah. But like, you know, I just want to be like we could just be honest about like graphically though, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
I mean, Blizzard games in general, like, you know, historically, they don't, like, try to be the most hardcore pushing, like, you know, visuals.
No, and they
technical
shouldn't,
side of
right?
things.
Because the PC audience, they have to, you know, scale down, yeah, and so that makes sense too, right? I mean, if anything, it's because of low end PCs, right? But Which makes sense. I mean, Blizzard has, even for games like Diablo, has a very wide audience. It does, you know?
Yeah.
These games appeal to a lot of different people, and so it makes sense in that regard, for sure.
That is true. Sort of, I guess, my final thought on Diablo 4 is that I think it's really interesting that, and this is sort of gonna tie into the next game that they announced. We mentioned how Activision has been intervening more in Blizzard in more recent years, right? They for a long time they were left to their own devices, and sort of the main thing that Activision told them was, you need to release games faster, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting that Diablo 4 is as far off as it is, right? And I wonder if it ties into the game they sort of closed with, Overwatch 2. And you might say, Overwatch 2, what the heck? You know, like, what is the 2 part of it? Well, buckle in. So, Overwatch 2, we don't know the pricing of how this is going to work. We don't know how a lot of this stuff will be, but the primary new thing it brings to the table is player versus enemy content, right? So this includes a story mode and things they call hero missions, which are designed to be replayable co-op, you're fighting enemies sort of instances, right? Some of them you see are using levels in the game already, right? And the thing I compared it to is like the adventure mode in Diablo, right? Where when you beat the story mode, there's just this mode that's just sort of you playing and just constantly getting new gear and it getting harder and harder, and you're sort of doing that. And that is the new content that will be exclusive to Overwatch 2. So what does that mean? Well, a bunch of the stuff that is coming as part of their release of Overwatch 2 is going to also be available in Overwatch 1. So that means, and things that includes are 3 new maps, 1 new game mode, which is called Push, 1 new character, and updated models and just changes for all of the existing heroes and maps, right? They're all getting new outfits, new looks. They're sort of, graphically, they're sort of, I think there's new lighting, a few other things that are at play. But this is a very sort of weird proposition. Because if you get Overwatch 1, if you already have Overwatch 1, you're getting all that stuff that I mentioned, right? Excluding the player versus enemy stuff. So sort of like, how do you think they should position it? Like, how much should they charge for this? You know, if you're already own Overwatch 1, like what do you think about all this?
Did they actually give a price for Overwatch?
No, we don't have any pricing
price.
details. In fact, we don't even know, is it like a new SKU like Overwatch 2? Or is it like an update? Like, are you going to buy it as DLC?
Or
right?
like an expansion
we don't know.
of some kind?
Yeah, we honestly do not know. However, I do think it's interesting. This is because I guess the easiest way, at least if you have any sort of knowledge about Fortnite, I guess the easiest way to kind of explain it is like, this is like, Overwatch 2 is kind of like the Fortnite Chapter 2 in a way, right? Like, they're completely redoing how it looks, all the characters, everything is new, right? But, you know, it's the same exact player base, right? And then the PvE stuff, the story mode, the what you have to buy, I guess in a way is like the Save the World mode for Fortnite, right? Like this extra addition that you have to pay for. So you're paying for the story content, you're paying for the single player PvE stuff, right? But the multiplayer is the same as it's always been. I mean, obviously they're gonna make big changes, you know. I imagine it's in particular gonna be optimized for next gen this time around, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, and it's very, you know, and you get to keep all your skins, you know, you'll continue to get new heroes, continue to get new maps, there's a new mode they announced, right? All this stuff. And so the PvP, like, the player base, you don't have to worry about that, right? You're not starting from scratch, you don't have to worry about your skins going anywhere. I think that's smart. I think this is an interesting way to do a sequel, right?
Yeah, that's pretty clever. Like, if you're doing the games as a service type thing, and you just want to make sure, like, you want the best way possible to move people from the first game to a sequel, that seems like a really good way to do it. Like, just preview some of the new stuff with, like, still have access to some of the new stuff while also retaining a lot of the old stuff, and then have people like, well, if you want more of it, just buy this extra content, like the PvE and story mode. That seems like a good idea.
I think it'll also be very interesting because they mentioned that the Overwatch, they have 50 million players, right? That was the number they announced today.
A whole lot.
Whole lot. And so I think that there's 2 interesting questions, which is, one, so like if you're on PC, I think you're sort of golden, right? In terms of like if you Overwatch is what is on your PC, it's there. You know, if Overwatch 2 ends up being a $40 thing that you buy, a $20 thing that you buy, right? Discounted because you own Overwatch 1. That'll be interesting. But if you're a PS4 player or Xbox One player, will Overwatch the base game transfer? Right? Like, maybe because there is backwards compatibility, that will be the case, right? But I think it'll be interesting to sort of.
The way I'm thinking, if actually, you know what it might actually be like? I think that, like, do you know when Minecraft on console moved to Minecraft, like, instead of being Minecraft Xbox One version, for example, they moved to just Minecraft, right?
Yeah.
And that was a whole new SKU, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what they did, and this was for every platform, you basically just, I mean, it wouldn't be for free like it was for Minecraft, but I assume there would be some sort of, because all the console stores have this kind of functionality in place, where basically the shop recognizes that you bought the original, so then it'll discount Overwatch 2, basically, right?
Yeah.
I that actually might be how they do it. I think it'll, instead of being, because at first I was thinking it's just going to be like, you know, you buy the PvE stuff as DLC, right? I'm actually thinking, no, this is going to be a new SKU. You could still play on Overwatch 1, like we said, right? And it'll probably be the same code base and everything, but like but you know, you'll probably have to buy Overwatch 2, and they will work with Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft to be like, hey, offer this upgrade plan, you know?
Yeah.
And work that out in whatever way. I'm sure they'll figure that out, you know? I don't think the...
and I think it's also interesting because this is very much sort of another approach to how do we make a sequel to a service game. We talked about this last week with Ubisoft, right? Ghost Recon Breakpoint did way worse than Ghost Recon Wildlands because people have been playing Ghost Recon Wildlands and they're like, why do I need a new one, right? I still have this thing that you've been updating.
Yeah, even the Division 2, right? Like the Division 2. And like Destiny 2 has been successful. I don't want to say it hasn't, right? Yeah. But there was a drop-off between Destiny and Destiny 2. You know?
Yeah. And so sort of, I think it's interesting to say, here's Overwatch 2, but a lot of it's still Overwatch 1. And if you're hopping in now, it's this, you know, this newly fully formed package. But if you've already been in, maybe they'll, you know, we're sort of assuming that it won't be a $60 charge if you already own Overwatch 1.
Yeah.
Which I feel like if it is, that's a huge mistake. Right. But instead, hey, this is essentially what Misaf said earlier, an expansion, right? I think that's very interesting as an approach to sort of a game that's big.
Depending on the execution, of course, pending, see how that's gonna go, right?
Yeah.
But I do think this is a smart best of both worlds approach, you know, to a games as a service sequel, you know. So I'm optimistic that it'll work out for them. We'll see, of course, you know. But I'm curious, yeah.
And so that's sort of Overwatch 2, I guess, on the whole. I don't know if there's any other real big thoughts you guys have on it.
I mean, New Heroes is cool. If it's as big of an upgrade as Fortnite Chapter 2 was, I'm in.
You can't stop talking about fucking Fortnite.
This is one passion.
Sorry, it's the biggest game in the world.
Oh shit, I don't give a fuck.
Sorry that our games podcast is talking about relevant things.
Fucking horny ass games. Go to fucking Mixer and watch fucking Ninja.
I will. Maybe
I'm watching Shroud now.
At least we now know what Muzzy's best game of 2019 would be now.
I mean, yeah. If I could, it's the game I played most all year. I played that one. Fire Emblem.
Fake games.
Fire Emblem, but
bunch of casuals over here.
But I want to have a little follow-up to a story we had last week about Ubisoft, speak of the devil. Because I want to point out that, like, I would recommend actually reading the press. Like, it's so weird to hear a CEO of a company straight up be like, these are the 3 reasons that we think our game failed. And especially when one of them's like, the loot system was bad. You're like, wow, that's very strange to hear from the mouth of
Especially on a press release, you know? Like, it feels like something like they would tell to investors, hey, this is why we failed. But to put it on a fucking press release, to put it out in the world, hey... Like, you know, usually you do not see press releases with the headline "We flopped." You know, you know.
But I think was really interesting, right? Is because we asked maybe how will this change when they go forward, and they did give a little hint of that, where they mentioned that now they are more prioritizing before they greenlight a game, there needs to be a unique pitch, basically, is the thing that they say, right? That when Ghost Recon Breakpoint happened, they sort of said, we need to make another Ghost Recon in the style of Wildlands, right?
Mhm.
And that was it. And that is in their mind a reason that it didn't do well, right? Like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a new IP, but sometimes it can be a new thing within a series, right? Like Watch Dogs Legion, for example, right? It's Watch Dogs, it still has like the hacker aesthetic, but you're controlling a grandma and a bunch of other people, right?
Yes.
That's a pitch. That's like here's my elevator idea, right? And I think that it's so interesting because sometimes it does feel like games are just on the assembly line, right? This thing was successful, so we're going to do it again, right? And I think it's interesting that Ubisoft sort of took a look as a company and publicly said, hey man, that actually doesn't work sometimes. You can make another sequel, but there needs to be a reason why. So I think that's ultimately a good thing.
Well, I feel like it's about time for that strategy for that strategy to stop working for them. I mean, I feel like they've been doing it for a long time now.
Well, see, I want to give credit to Ubisoft here for a quick second, okay? Because yes, this year they released Ghost Recon Breakpoint and The Division 2, two very iterative sequels, right? And they flopped, right?
Yeah.
But to give them credit, people talk about the Ubisoft formula, but like all generation long, they've been successful, and all generation long, they've been doing new things, right? Like Rainbow Six Siege is unlike any other game they've put out. Tom Clancy's Wildlands is not like any other game they put out. They reinvented Assassin's Creed this generation, right? Watch Dogs is about to, and we even see like stuff like Mario Rabbids, The Crew, like they have had, I would say, the most diverse output of any AAA publisher this generation, and for the most part have succeeded because of that, right? It's only when they started doing the iterative sequels this year that this is the first time all generation long where we have seen them dip, right?
Yeah.
So if anything, to me, like you can say like this is their next step, that they're changing, but I think to me this is just a continuation of they're looking at what made them successful this generation in the first place,
Sure. But you can see how there's the temptation as a company to go with what you feel is the more risk-averse decision, right?
Yeah. No. I mean, the decision to greenlight Ghost Recon Breakpoint was Wildlands was successful. Let's just do more of that, right? But but I mean, I just wanted to say like, hey, Ubisoft has had a diverse output this year,
sure.
There's
never a guarantee that companies will get this right lesson, right? Like how many times have we looked at publishers that you're just like, it's right there, what are you doing, right? Like,
for sure.
And so it's cool to see the thought out loud, right, of sort of turning it around.
I mean, it's got to have that public commitment, right, to say it out loud. Hey, like we, this is what we see as the path to success. It's something I agree with them, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like Ubisoft has been the best AAA publisher. I just
sure
wanted to give them credit.
That's fair. So that's Ubisoft. Wanted to briefly mention that, but there's one final story that I think is interesting. It didn't get a ton of coverage, but I think it's an indicator of where we are at as an industry, which is Sony shut down this week PlayStation Vue, which may not be a thing you've ever heard of, but it was essentially Sony attempting to make their own sort of cable provider-like service, right? For people that cut the cords, you could get different packages to have things. It was big for like people that want to watch live sports or like live events like wrestling. PlayStation Vue was a good alternative.
Like series and stuff too.
Yeah, well, they did like Powers was a big one they had earlier this generation.
View? I didn't know.
It was part of PlayStation Plus, but then it got wrapped into PlayStation Vue when it came out.
But yeah, if you know what YouTube TV or Sling TV or Hulu Live TV, like those services, what those offer, that's basically what PlayStation Vue is.
Well, was because it's being shut down in the next 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is so interesting because Sony has kind of a history of this. Music Unlimited they did earlier this decade, and that got shut down. But this generation, I would say, when we walked in, right, semi-infamously, very big focus on consoles as multimedia devices, right? The infamous Xbox One unveil of TV, sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sony sort of was able to, by virtue of not being Xbox, seem like we're for the gamers, right? But like they were still interested in it too. You don't do a service like PlayStation Vue if you're not.
Yeah.
And that's because so much of last gen, there was sort of the thought that like Netflix, sold an extra 20 million Xbox 360s, right?
Yes.
But I feel like this is an indicator that throughout this console generation, you know, this plus the fact that like Switch, for example, launched, still doesn't have Netflix, right? They didn't have YouTube for a year, basically. That the idea of like the multimedia device video game console doesn't have nearly the draw that it used to.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I
it's
feel
just-
like everything can do it now. So
yeah,
that's why.
correct. That is the
I think
reason,
that's
right? Like,
precisely
you know,
correct.
I mean, people, hell, it's built into most people's TVs at this point, let alone
Yep.
needing an extra device. And
Yeah.
if you do need an extra device, there's so many $29 products, or even, you know, if you want to go up to $99, still much cheaper than a console.
So it's
Right.
it's basically just clutter on your
Yeah.
video game system.
Or like or I mean, you know, we've seen mobile viewage on mobile devices just skyrocket, right? So it's like it doesn't really have a purpose for consoles anymore. It's like it's a thing of like it's like a handy feature for people who do regularly play games on a console. Like, okay, like I'll watch them, but I don't think it's a necessity. I don't think it's a selling point anymore, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to the Wii users who still have their Netflix disc.
No, I
Sure.
want to say about PlayStation Vue. I don't know if it's necessarily indicative of like, oh, you know, there's no point in having multimedia on a console. More so that, you know, PlayStation Vue had its problems in that, like, you know, new competitors came in, offered much stronger slates.
Yeah, I mean, the streaming
Yeah.
wars is heating up, right?
Yeah, and Sony could not necessarily keep up with that. And then, you know, like we mentioned, yeah, okay, you can do it on your PlayStation, but then PlayStation Vue was so limited on the amount of devices that could actually do it, which for a subscription service, like, the biggest thing is, hey, you got to open up to everyone. I mean, even now, like, Apple is needing to put an Apple TV app on Android devices, you know, which is they put Apple Music on Android devices, you know, like it's just platform agnosticity is like the biggest component to subscription services, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, this is available on PlayStation systems and like a handful of other things. That doesn't cut it, you know.
Plus, did they ever have like a seller, like some kind of product that was exclusive to them?
Not really.
I mean,
That anybody
No.
cared about? Because I never heard of one.
Not. No.
There was people that I know that liked PlayStation Vue, right? They were sort of like, it was actually a good affordable option for what like I needed, but like there was
Were
never
they-
like
Were they Sony?
you need to watch
ponies?
Orange is the New Black. What was the question? Sorry.
Were they Sony
Sony
ponies?
No, actually, there was one of the guys was like is a huge Nintendo fanboy, but he was like,
And I think
hey, man.
PlayStation
Were
Vue
they
generally
Sony
offered a similar value to say YouTube TV, right? But it's just like, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, YouTube is a much bigger brand, right? You know, like
Yeah.
True.
yeah.
YouTube
YouTube TV has all the marketing deals. Like you watch the World Series and you see YouTube TV plastered everywhere. You know, like it's just
And I still don't watch YouTube TV. Fuck that.
Yeah. So I just want to sort of mention that because I think it is sometimes you forget where like how much can change in a console generation, right?
Yeah.
And even this one, which has been I think more stable than a lot of previous ones, stuff like this still happens, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, if we see that stuff mentioned on next
because
year.
I think like for PlayStation in particular, what this means for PlayStation, right? Because we do know Sony wants to move more in the direction of subscription services, right? And funnily enough, PlayStation Vue, because it was pretty successful when it started, is kind of what kickstarted this whole trend for them, right?
Yeah.
You know, but I do think they're gonna start transitioning into more like, hey, if it has the PlayStation name, maybe it'll be more focused on, you know, enhancing your game experience, right? Like they sell PlayStation Music, right? Which is it's just Spotify. It is literally Spotify. Like it is. I don't mean like copying Spotify. It is a Spotify subscription. You know.
Yes.
But like you know, but it lets you play the music over play your Spotify music over the game you're playing. You know. And so I think this is just okay. We're gonna focus on services that make sense for video games, right? Which is why I think PlayStation Now is gonna be a much bigger deal for them. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I mean that is, you know, of course, a thing that you're gonna have to pay for no matter what. But you know what's free every week, baby?
What's free?
The list.
The list. I was not
That
expecting
is-
this segment.
I know. Normally I do a big wind up. I wanted to see what happens when I just throw it out there. So follow along the pace bin below, by the way, as every week we add a game to an ever-growing, ever-changing mishmash of good, bad, and ugly video games on the list. This last week, Brandon added... What did he add? Do we remember?
Good question.
He added Beautiful Joe.
Beautiful Joe, 58 on the list. Just as you said it, I saw it. Pretty good ranking, right? This week, it's me.
Oh.
And I don't know how this one's going to go, but I want to throw it out there, right? I think enough of us have played it. A game that I would say does qualify as being part of a phenomenon, right? A thing that swept across this nation and several others, hopefully, if Saf played it.
Well, I'm out.
Rock Band.
Damn.
Have you
Rock
played
Band.
I have. Yeah.
But it was ages ago. Fucking.
Hey man, guess what? That's basically everyone that played Rock Band. You tell me you still got the drum out there? I don't think so. But for those, yeah, for the 10-year-olds out there who were born after Rock Band was huge, this was sort of by Harmonix. It was right in the middle of the plastic instrument rhythm game zeitgeist. Just, we had 3 Guitar Heroes a year. It was a whole lot, right? But the Harmonix were the people that made the original Guitar Hero, right? They left Activision and they said, okay, so we made a plastic guitar. It was fun to do that. Why don't we add in a plastic drum kit and a, kind of plastic, kind of metal microphone that you could sing into, right?
Regular microphone.
And suddenly you got yourself a fake rock band and you and your friends can sing all your favorite Aerosmith songs. I guess that's the first band that came to my mind. But this was a thing that played super well at as a multiplayer event, right? At parties, right? There's a lot of times when you're at get-togethers, it's rare to see a video game like played at like a party of like more than 20 people, right?
Yeah.
Rock Band, you would see it, right? And it would be a thing that people would look at and would congregate. They would want to take turns. They would want to have their own songs. And I think that like it is, in an idea that's very simple, right? We want to make you feel like you're in a rock band without any of the hard work of being in a rock band. But no one else had done it up to that point, right? And I think that it was super fun. Like I do have a lot of very strong, pleasant memories playing Rock Band with different people, right? And seeing, some people get super into it and demand getting 100s on expert, and some guys that are playing on easy mode and are hitting 5 notes over the 3-minute song. Both of them are still having fun. So obviously, a weird thing because how do you compare it to a lot of these games? But that's why I like the list, That's why I bring Wii Fit sometimes. So where do I want to put it? I don't know if you guys have other thoughts you want to add before we get to that.
No, I mean, it's a great game. I enjoyed it very much when I played it. I think the problem was buying the songs afterwards, like buying any supplemental songs.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of pain in the ass, and
Sure.
I don't think that was handled very well. The tour mode, was iffy. It's not that, it's not that fun. The most fun of it was like free playing with your friends, just picking songs, at random.
Great multiplayer experience for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not...
And I would say I pick Rock Band 1. I think Rock Band 2 is a better game. Right? I think they improve on that single player stuff. They improve on sort of making just quality of life features, right? But I do think that the first one is so interesting because it was the first, right? Yeah. So where would I want to put it on the list? That's a question.
They all seem like the same game to me. I don't know what the difference is.
Well, I mean, part of it is because they all the songs transfer to the old one that they sort of all blur together, and they were in a very tight time frame, right?
Yeah.
But where would I want to put it on the list? Let me take a look. So I would want to put it above Mega Man 3.
What is
Mega Man?
That's 45.
This list is so big now. It just like fuck.
How high would I take it up? What?
We're just getting started, Seth.
I know. Wait till we're in the 4 digits, buddy. I think I would put it at number 40 or 41.
I mean, it was fun, but was it that fun, really?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it was.
Yeah. I like it more than I had more fun playing it than WarioWare, and I love WarioWare, right? But and Octopath.
Octopath needs to go down. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think Rock Band is a great game. Like, it's fun, it's clear in what it is. Like, it provides a good experience. It makes you feel like you're actually playing the song. You know what I mean? It's satisfying. Like I said, like, buying more songs is a pain in the fucking ass, and I wish that was, I wish they had more songs in general, and they made that they streamlined the whole process, but...
Am I crazy, or did you not unlock songs through the single player? Pretty sure
you did.
Could. Yeah.
You did, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, if there's 60 songs and you don't like 20 of them, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
These games can always be very fickle depending on what your tastes are, right? If there's no songs you like, then that can be a problem.
Yeah, you'll be stuck playing like the same 15 songs over and over.
Yeah.
Pain in the ass.
It's hard because there's so many games below it that I'm like, man, I don't want to put it above, but like it's undeniable like how big it was and how important it was, and it's just a great game.
We don't need to talk about how big or important it was.
That's part of my consideration.
That's a shit. No, those are the shit.
I want to give a shout out.
That is
shitty consideration.
Just because you don't consider
those are
it.
shit considerations. Absolutely. Garbage.
I want to give a shout out. This shouldn't factor it in, but my cousin, who sometimes listens to the podcast, he's a music major. He got into music because of Rock Band when he was like 8, right? So like, this guy freaking going to college.
Put it at number 1. Fine.
Put it at number 1. Change the kid's life. What can you say?
What if we put it below just one spot less?
Super Metroid made me a loner, and that changed my life. So I was never the same again.
What if we put it below 999? Just one spot lower.
He wants that
that's
40.
like 5 spots lower.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Well, I think you said Mega Man 3.
I was saying Mega Man 3, then I was like, that's my 4, and I moved up to like
lower then. Yeah,
so to below Mario Bros. Yeah.
I want to put it below 999.
I mean, that's where I'm standing at. Like, I feel as though it's great as a party game, but I've never found any more love for this game other than just to play at
Well,
parties.
I mean, that's what it's for.
I mean, it's best in class. Always give it points for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 999, not the best visual novel.
Damn.
Well, wait, is that actually the highest ranked visual novel on our list?
I think it is.
Wow.
So you know what? It is the best visual novel.
I thought for sure that there was that something was.
We
above
corrected
it.
the ghost trick problem. Don't worry.
Okay. I still that ghost lingers over me at all times.
I would not put. I mean, here, okay, it is a better game than GoldenEye.
GoldenEye needs to go down like 55 spots.
Yeah,
I'm putting that shit down.
Wow.
GoldenEye
Fuck
aged
that
badly.
fucking game.
I clearly
GoldenEye aged badly. Yeah.
This is not.
Even when it was remade, it still wasn't that great.
Okay, save it for the re-rank. Okay, save it for the
good
re-rank.
Yeah.
For the re-rank.
Who the fuck put that shit there? I want names.
Wasn't that you? Wasn't that a 3-man show? Wasn't that Brandon, you, and Moose?
It was fucking Muzzy that agreed with him. Because it wasn't me.
Well, okay. Well,
I mean, on the premise that GoldenEye is going to be placed lower, do we want it higher than Treasure Trove?
No, I think it should go below Treasure Trove.
Yeah, at the very least. Come on.
Be reasonable.
Yeah.
Be reasonable. This fucking guy.
I remember Super Mario Brothers too. Don't think I forgot.
Thank you.
Treasure Trove.
I don't mind. Anywhere in that area feels good to me. Like, I don't have a strong affinity for this game. Like, I liked it a lot. I think it's really good for parties, but I have problems with this game.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Okay. Below Treasure Trove.
I hate reading. Were you writing Rick and Morty?
Roxy.
Muzill's having a seizure as he's writing out on the list right now.
Who told you to write
for
this?
this man.
I do the writing.
Oh my god. There we go. We got the 2 words rock and band on here. We did it.
Technically correct, I guess.
All right. That puts Rock Band at number 45 on the list. Surrounding at 43, GoldenEye 007,
This
44.
is terrible audio because they It's not like they
Oh, yeah.
I'm
he's trying
telling
to
you,
fucking
I said it out
pay for
loud.
over his mistakes.
You wrote Rick 3 times, and then you wrote Rock's Band.
Jesus Christ.
That's what happened, listeners. That's what happened.
No great fucking mystery.
The CIA is going to try to kill me after giving these secrets away. So, 43, GoldenEye 007, 44, Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, 45, Rock Band, 46, Mega Man 3, 47, 999, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. Gotta work on your diaphragm to get all those words out. We didn't talk about Ring Fit.
Exactly.
Hey, Ills, how's your Ring Fit been going?
Nah, fuck you.
That's the last
Okay,
word.
alright.
That's the last word. Do the Ring Fit review.
Fine.
It's a 5-minute last word?
Fine. No, I'll do it fast.
Okay. All right. So, Ills, your Ring Fit review will be the last word. While you work out, I will tell people that if you enjoy listening to this podcast, God bless your soul, and also please subscribe because of that. Rate us 5 stars on the podcast service of your choice. Follow us on twitter.com/jumpupsupercast, Facebook, also Jump Up Supercast, and Instagram. That is where we post when we go and publish this podcast every Monday and every other Thursday, the Jump Up Supercast Game Club. If you look in your feeds, you should see Apotheon. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
All right. That's the most recent game club of choice. That, of course, always appreciated as well listening to that. As I said, what is coming next?
Hotel Dusk?
Oh!
215.
And that will maybe have a rare appearance from Saf, who's mysteriously died on the game club in universe for the last roughly year.
And so did Will.
Well, I'm still dead. I haven't risen from the grave yet. But until then, Ills, how's Ring Fit been going?
All right. So week 2's down. We're fucking doing it. We're on World 6. It's going real well. I mean, I love the fact that as soon as you reach World 40, you get to unlock new skills. I didn't think this was possible before, but I found out that you could. So you get like skill points every level up, and you get to add more fit skills. So that's fucking awesome. And yeah, I guess that's it. Talk shit, get fit.
World 40?
What? No, level
World
40.
40?
Level 40.
Okay.